Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. It is still, believe it or not, at least for a limited time only, Friday, July 7th, 2017, and we are back for tech support. It's that time. Let me change this topic text before I get berated here. There we go. That's in. We're locked in. Patch notes, patch notes, patch notes. We've arrived. Ladies and gentlemen, we have just got back from our break. Thank you so much for joining us yet again. We've got a good list of questions this week, actually. I was reading them ahead of time, and we actually have a number of pretty solid questions here. Let me just hop on over to that Patreon page. If you're listening to this on iTunes, you're watching it on YouTube, and you manage to always miss the sellout times, this whole podcast is funded by beautiful people like yourselves on patreon.com/technicalalpha. We have 392 absolute beauties ensuring that we can continue to do this on a weekly basis, and getting closer and closer, slowly but closer and closer, to expanding our content out into other fanciful things. And I guess if you needed a little bit of an incentive, if you've ever wanted to see Jeff and I bang our heads against the wall while playing old ass games at the $5 tier and higher.
Last week.
This is true. Yes, and there are even 2 episodes now with Panic involved, since he was here in Halifax. So we even got those up. In fact, the first of those went up today, and that was Double Dragon. At $5 or higher on the Patreon, you get access to that, and we put up those videos only for those patrons. So get out there, I guess, and join the 202 other people that have access to that content. Let's see what we got for this first question. Though you also look, you have something that you want to say, Panic. You keep
I was going to
like
say for all of our I was like, no, it's just more a gesture. Now I was going to say for all the patrons, especially because you know we have Adam and Jeff doing the sellout all the time. But, it really does help us out. You might think, oh, they're making a ton and they're using this stuff. Adam and Jeff use it to actually live. For me, the money I'm getting off of the podcast, I use it to go visit these guys so we can get some content from there. But also I'm using it to get better audio gear so, we have a better quality podcast. So, whatever support you guys give us helps us out a lot, and we really do appreciate it. I know Adam and Jeff say it all the time, but I felt, maybe I should say it, for what I at least use it for too. So there you go. That's my sellout spiel.
Good job. Nice. Good job. I liked it. That was a solid sellout. I appreciate the effort. I appreciate the effort. So do you have a question that you want to tackle first there, sir? We've got all sorts of them this week.
Yeah, I mean, I figure I'll start it off with a slightly more serious one because it actually was directed mostly to me for this particular one.
Sure, go for it.
But it was from Toad Steel. Question mostly for Panic, but Adam, you can feel free to chime in. In light of yet another derailment at Penn Station, how important do you think it is to invest in public transit infrastructure, particularly around large cities? Now, before I get into it, I'm going to say probably the reason why it was more directed at me than you is after visiting Halifax, I realized you live in the middle of nowhere. You live in the middle of nowhere. There's no infrastructure anyway. You're in the boonies. You ride moose to work.
We have a transit bus, and that's it.
Yeah, so like from my perspective, and it's a very, I'm not going to say a political answer, but it's a very politically correct one. I'm going to say infrastructure is probably one of the most important investments that we can make as a country. It's not sexy, so it doesn't get as much as it should. In New York especially, we have infrastructure that's hundreds of years old, as ridiculous as it sounds, and it's still in use and it's still running well, but it needs maintenance. So I know you were expecting some deep, super crazy conversation about your question, Toad Steel, but Penn Station or not, the derailment there or not, I feel like it's always important for us to invest in the infrastructure, and we've been grossly negligent in doing so. Not just in the States, it's almost everywhere, worldwide. Like, you have some countries that are going big on the infrastructure, but most are just kind of letting it kind of decay away. It's all in that whole fiscal conservation mentality where, they're like, oh, we shouldn't be spending money, but They're not really spending it in the right place.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, well, what we have right now is working fine. But in reality, they're not really planning for capacity and stuff. To address your Penn Station part of the question, it's a problem we've been having in New York and in the area for a long time now. The system's old. Our subway system is ancient. Like everyone says, oh, New York subway system is shitty. It's like, no, it's just really old. It's one of the most extensive subway systems in the world. And the fact that we keep it running and it runs pretty much all the time. So, it might look shitty, but it works. So I wish they would invest some more to kind of bring it up to speed, and they are. For example, this Penn Station derailment plus a ton of Amtrak derailments. They're literally closing a major subway line between New York and New Jersey for a couple of months. Like they're closing it during weekdays, during rush hour for a couple of months so they can do a ton of restoration work and, signal and safety work. And you might think, oh, they're only closing one line. This one closure is causing tens of thousands of people to have to refigure out their commute, work from different offices, and that's just one line. The New York subway system is like 15 something lines. The Jersey side of things, like 4 or 5 lines is connecting to New York, and then it's all over. Like there's massive systems. So yeah, this one derailment is just an indication of the problem we've been having. They just need to throw more money at it and more time and effort. But, there's not much else to say on it. Like, how do you feel about that in general? I feel like that's something you would agree on. Like, it's not like something people are going to say, no, don't spend on it.
I don't think there's anybody that's like, fuck public transit infrastructure. It's terrible.
It's just not sexy. It's just not sexy.
No, it's just not something that you want. Like, you're right. It's not sexy. So, but at the same time, you're right. It's weird. Depending on where you are in the world, and sometimes even depending on where you are in any given country, you'll have places that are almost overspending on infrastructure, and they're just going crazy with it. And then you have places that are letting that shit just go, and it's weird. But. Yeah, I can't speak about the whole Penn Station thing or whatever, but just infrastructure wise, you've got I kind of feel for them, because on one hand, it's not like New York is hurting for money at all. It's really not. I mean, if there was going to be a place in the world that could afford to have public transit be balling out of control, New York is probably on the short list of places that could afford to make it ball out of control. The really difficult part is the fact that so many people, like Panic already said, rely on that public transit to get them to and from work every single day in a timely fashion. The streets of New York are already crammed full of cars, and if you start putting more cars on the road because people can't use their normal form of transportation to get to and from work via subway stations, etc., then that's a nightmare, right? That's like an absolute nightmare waiting to happen.
I would be all right if they do enough improvements so that those trains run on time and on schedule.
Well, yeah.
Get us there first.
I think it's almost like a thing where they have to decide, are we going to do longer term, more extensive rebuilds in, fewer points over the course of history, or are we going to do incremental upgrades and renovations or maintenance that might seem like there's people say there's, for example, in Montreal, one of the jokes is it's construction season all year round. Like it's a never-ending construction. Like you think there's been this one piece of highway being built or redone for the course of the last 5 years, and it finally gets finished, and you're like, oh, thank God, I can finally get to work and not have to worry about all this bullshit and everything. And then you get 14 seconds down the road, and all of a sudden it's the same thing, but just 14 seconds down the road, and you start all over from square one. It feels like it's never ending. And I think sometimes the cities try to avoid that because all they get is backlash from people going, holy shit, can we just have a reprieve here, please? I just want to be able to go to fucking work. And so they're balancing a budget. They're balancing the strain on public transit, not just public transit, but But you know, individual transit, like if you're getting to a car or something, whatever has to replace public transit if it's down. And then and also deal with the fact that they've got voting people that have to like them to keep them in place. That if they just keep having construction that's pissing them off all the time, it's probably a problem. So I can appreciate
in New
where
York,
you're
that was
coming
one of the
from.
things. The reason why they're shutting down this specific line is this is also the line that the regional, like Amtrak, which is our regional, like longer rail line service, runs through. And Amtrak just has a notorious tendency. Their trains just don't want to stay on the tracks. It's like they get on the tracks and then they're like, you know what? No, fuck this, and they just jump the tracks. It's usually you'll hear about it 4 or 5 times a year. In Connecticut, it happened so badly that that line had to be closed for a very long time because the train derailed and smashed into another one. So, and it's been happening in this tunnel quite a bit where it's been getting derailed. It's one of the subway tunnels that goes across the river. So now they're finally just like, fuck it, we're going to close the whole thing for 2 to 3 months.
Yeah.
And just do it. It'll run over the weekends. Like they're just like, but we just need 5 days in a row for 2 months, you know, for weeks in a row, just to do the work and just do it across all the tracks and just get it done. And they're like, this will be way less disruption than us like trying to stage things, because they have to like kind of stage it in pieces where they're like, okay, this is what we can do in one night and put back, and you know, keep the train line serviceable. Now they're just gonna be like, oh, we can keep this thing down for 5 days. We can pull out a huge thing, do a bunch of stuff, and make sure it works by the end. So for me personally, it's messy, but it's interesting.
Yeah,
I think
the scariest thing about this kind of crap is especially in dense population centers that keep increasing in population and aren't likely to stop anytime soon, is how far behind they're going to be able to get before it becomes before it becomes almost impossible to bring them back up. Like,
well, that's the problem here too.
Yeah, you can't just rely on subways to do all of your work. You can't just rely on buses to do all of your work, or trolley above ground. You have to. There needs to be a multifaceted fucking infrastructure, because the whole idea is to reduce the number of cars on the road, not to be some hippie Greenpeace shit, but because nobody
just to make it travelable
anywhere.
You need
if
to be able to
people
move
don't do that
things,
and you have to make it, in such a way. It's super difficult. It's an absolute engineering, nightmare. Is you have to
civil
make it
planning,
work in such
urban
a way
planning, crazy,
that people want to use it, so that they do use it. It's not necessarily always a case of if you build it, they will come. You have to make it. You have to make it more appealing than sitting in traffic in your car listening to music and just being there for 4 hours of your day every fucking day of the week. Like, that's just absolutely.
It's funny because
crazy.
people will complain about the subway forever, but then when it's not running, they realize how good they have it. Like when a line is down, they realize how good they have it. Because like for me, for example, I take the PATH train every day now, and I used to take the subway. I used to take Metro North. I lived on public transit, and for me, I was sitting there, and I'm like, the one time I had to drive into work and find parking and do that, I'm just like, no, I got it pretty good. I roll into the station, I park my car, I sit in the train for 45 minutes, I walk for 5 minutes, and then I take a subway for 20 minutes. I'm like, honestly, that's way less hassle than driving for an hour and then trying to find parking, like paying $50.
Absolutely.
I'm like,
absolutely
solid.
So here in Halifax, these are two totally different universes. Halifax is like a city block of New York, but
how many mooses per square kilometer?
How many what?
Or how many mooses or meese per square kilometer?
Oh, how many meeses per square kilometer? Too many. No, Halifax's thing is that obviously it's an extraordinarily old city. Like this, I mean, Canada, when Canada was formed, it started on the East Coast, and Halifax was one of the first. And so it's been around since the dawn of this entire fucking North America, essentially. And everything is a fucking horse path or like a cow cart path thing. It's basically been around for so long, and they built the city around that, and they never took down a fucking building. So they just kept saying, well, we have cars now, we'll just make this road barely wide enough for 2 cars to fucking get past each other without scraping the paint off each other, and call it a day. And so downtown Halifax is an absolute nightmare. We also, it's they have to change every so many years which roads you can drive in which directions, and which ones become one ways and which ones become two way, but only at certain times of the day. And it's just become this like convoluted clusterfuck. And then when you were here, you also saw our supposed to be roundabouts that aren't actually roundabouts, or just bastardized circles.
We were talking about that.
Yeah,
it was a circle in the road.
Oh, it's absolutely terrible. So our problem is, while the city isn't absolutely huge, it's big enough that the infrastructure that is in place, that's been in place for a couple hundred years, is not suitable. It's just not suitable. And so there have been continuous discussions as to how they were going to improve it, because Halifax as a city is growing, not at some sort of crazy pace, but we're so far behind infrastructure-wise that if we don't start now, we're going to be absolutely wrecked if we don't get ahead of it. So there have been discussions about subway or above-ground train type shit starting to be considered for Halifax.
Halifax would probably do really well for just it doesn't even need like a subway, for example. Just even a light rail system would be solid.
Exactly.
Like,
part of the problem
run that alongside
is
some of the roads. You got plenty of space for it.
That rotary that we drove around is one of like 3 major choke points in Halifax. That's the bigger problem, is that all traffic goes through like only a couple of different points where everything converges.
No, for Halifax, that would suck having light rail above ground, because like the amount of snow, you'd have to clear that off all the time.
Well, yeah, there'd have to be some obviously something for it, but
Actually, no, you just stick a plow on the train, you're good to go.
That too, but the problem is the choke points, and so the idea is at the very least relieve the choke points. So if we start putting stuff across the water or under the water or whatever we need to do to make it happen, we need to start thinking about it now. But the problem is, of course, we're not balling out of control. In fact, we have horrible budgetary issues here in this province, and so infrastructure gets left in the dust like crazy.
Because it's not sexy.
It's not sexy, and even if it was sexy, we don't really have the money for it anyway. So we have a Metro Transit here, right? It's only a bus line. That's our only form, other than like taxis and Ubers or whatever else. That's all we have is a bus line, and it's been overhauled and done better over the years, but it can't be the only thing that's relied upon, especially because, again, due to those choke points, they don't just exist for any particular reason. The density in those areas for people that are living outside the city coming into work is huge,
really
and so
high.
You can only have so many buses on a singular line fucking running at all times. So, I guess my view on it is get ahead of it if you can and you can afford it. If I was in charge, you have to almost campaign to make it sexy so that you can say, look, we have to
that
suck
monorail
it
guy
up.
from The Simpsons.
Yeah, we have to suck it the fuck up for a period of time so that we can put the stuff in place. Otherwise, if you think it's bad now, it's going to get orders of magnitude worse. Like, just Band-Aid, take it off quick, get it over with, and move the fuck on. Speaking of moving the fuck on, let's get another question.
Hit us up with a question, Adam.
Yeah, we gotta get this question. Let's get away from public transit and into something else. Let's see. There were so many good ones. I'm trying to get a good follow up to that one. That's a little bit more of a different tone. Here you. Well, let's go with this one. What skill would you like to master? That comes in from Mats Bjornstad is how I'm going to pronounce that last
Bjork.
name.
Mats
Bjork. Thank you, Mats. What skill would you like to master? Something that you haven't, but maybe you've always wanted to master.
I really just want a wood shop. I want to be able to make things out of wood, MDF, whatever. It's been one of those things that I said, if I ever don't have to work, get a garage space, get a workshop, and I want to make shit. Be it woodworking or metalworking or both, put them together. I want to make stuff with my hands. Because like I look at something, I'm like, oh yeah, I can make that. It's just I don't have time. I've used power tools before. I've built stuff. I have some skill. Like I won't chop a limb off, I think.
Yes.
but I would like to be able to just do that and spend time on it. So it's
That's,
someone in chat says you want to hold a lot of wood with your hands. Got
I
it.
mean, you know,
But
sometimes you just
yeah,
gotta. No, I
yeah, no,
actually agree.
it's like
That's my thing too. Yeah.
like I want to build a new desk. I want to be able to do that myself. I want to like build cabinetry myself. I want to just build random stuff. Like there are things I want to
Mm-hmm.
do, and I was like, I could build that if I had time.
I just
So that's one of
my
my
thing
goals.
is I grew up, you know, my dad does all of that shit, right? So um you know, he can I mean, he built his first house. Like, they did the only reason that they didn't do like plumbing and electric in depth is because you have to have a licensed
Licensing and
person,
code stuff.
you know. He could technically do it, but he doesn't have the license behind it. So I watched Dad doing all this stuff, and he imparted as much onto me as he could. But I mean, I don't spend more than a handful of days in any given year, you know, with him doing that stuff because you just you just don't have time, and it's not always necessary. You know, most of it was work done on his homestead, you know, my grandmother's place, because the house is 170 years old. And so you constantly have a list of shit that needs to be done around a house that's 170 years
Yep.
old. And so you'd constantly be doing that kind of stuff. And it's always been super interesting. And it's always annoyed me that I've had, you know, Dad there, but I haven't been able to utilize that fully and actually sit down and learn more, while he's around to teach me this shit. Because I might be able to, you know, and but he looks at me the same way. He goes, yeah, well, I mean, I can do all this stuff, but you know, you build computers and you know how to deal with all this, you know, tech shit. And he put it relatively well. I mean, honestly, when he grew up and it was a farmhouse and his dad did absolutely everything by hand. It was just something that you did. And right now, with the amount of time everybody has in the world that we live in, everybody is super hyper specialized. And if you don't have time for it, you pay somebody who is specialized in it to do it for you. But it is kind of unfortunate because some of those skills, are just nice to have to be able to do yourself, because you want to be able to do more for yourself, but
Yeah.
you can't always do it because of time. So I agree. I would absolutely love to be able to do stuff, woodworking and things of that by hand. And like you, I can do some things. I'm definitely not going to cut off a hand. I can keep my house from, exploding. I can do all that shit. But I can't, like, if Dad said, here, go build a house like he did, fuck no. That house would be falling over in 2 seconds. There wouldn't be anything done properly. It would be a complete mess. So that would, and that's something that, if I won the lottery tomorrow, that would be the first thing I did. I would go and buy property,
I'd build
and then I'd
myself
be
a
like,
nice
Dad,
workonna
and then no, it wouldn't be a workshop. I'd buy a property.
Oh, you're gonna build
and
a
I'd
house
say,
first.
I say, Dad, let's go build a fucking house, and he'd be like, fuck yeah, and we just go build a house. So like, that's what I would do. So no, I definitely.
The first thing
agree
you
with
do
that.
is build the workshop so you can build the house.
Yes, absolutely, 110%.
No, it's and I feel like it's a skill that we're kind of losing. Like everyone's just like, oh, I can pay someone else to do it, but it's just like at the same time, it's just like there is that satisfaction of grabbing that piece of wood in your hands and then shaping it and then building something solid that you can use.
Absolutely.
No, it's just my dad used to build stuff when I was younger. And it's just one of those things that I remember. And I built some stuff in college, and it's like it's always been one of those things that I've always gotten great satisfaction, even if the stuff came out like shit. I'm like, no, I made this. I hung the shield up on the wall, and I'm proud of that because I did it properly. I checked the weight loads, it's balanced properly, it's in a stud. A lot of people my age, in my generation, they don't know how to do that. Like
those
some people, when
infomercials
I
are
was like,
totally factual. You
they're
watch
just like,
somebody trying to put a nail into a stud, and they put a hammer through a wall. Like the shit's
yeah, they're just like, oh no, you. And one guy's like, why don't you just stick a nail in the wall and put some wire on the back of the shield and hang it? I'm like,
yeah,
thing weighs like 14 pounds. It probably tears part of the drywall out if I use just a nail. So
definitely.
it's those skills that I feel like we should be kind of preserving at the same time. Shall we pop on to the next question?
I think so. You can pick up that next one.
All right. Let's go with a little bit more of a fictional side of things. From
Okay.
Soft Shoe, what mythology is your favorite, and what deity or divinish
Hmm.
creature or character from that mythology would you be?
Oh, what the fuck? Uh,
You got the Roman, you got the Greek, you got the Norse, you got the Indian, you got all sorts.
I mean, I don't know. I'm not a mythology guy. I don't really
Really?
I'm not I never really got into it enough um to really be able to answer this accurately. I mean, I appreciate them all for their different things because they all have, I mean, there are some that kind of get mixed up. They're so damn similar that you could almost mistake them for one another. But some of them are pretty wildly different and out there for sure. Um I think I don't know. I think I have I enjoy um Norse mythology probably the most. Um I don't know, it just seems more rooted in not necessarily rooted in reality so much. I guess it does kind of to me in some weird and wonderful way, but it just seems more visceral. It just seems more natural than some of the other stuff. I mean, all mythologies have some pretty crazy out there nonsense for sure. But there's just something about the the Norse mythology that's slightly less batshit to me for whatever reason. So I think I'd go with that. Now, as for what I would be in that, I'd not a damn clue. But I think that's probably. I'll let the comment section
You can be a
decide what
frost
in Norse.
giant.
Yeah, what in Norse mythology I would end up being. I'll let the YouTube comments and chat decide what I fall into in that category. But what about you?
From an elegance point of view, I would go with Egyptian, but from my personal favorite, to answer the question directly, I'm actually going to go with Norse as well. Um,
Okay.
Again, it everything had its purpose. Everything wasn't like completely outlandish, even though it kind of was at the same time. But it just for the same reason you said, it's kind of visceral. It's got its purpose. It has its form, and it's like it's pretty well documented and defined as well,
Mm-hmm.
compared to a lot of mythologies. Personally, I always kind of empathize with like Heimdall. He's pretty much the gatekeeper, and all of that. So
Okay.
that was the character. Actually, and that's actually a funny side thing. All of my computer hardware is named after Norse Norse items. Like my NAS box is called Munin, which is like storage and archives. My PC is now named Molnir, but the one before it was called the Asir. So, and the one before that was called Titan, and pretty much the Asir slew the Titans and all that fun stuff. So, like, I kind of like name all of my little things based on different Norse items. I've got a couple others floating around. So that's my little Norse stuff.
Oh, that's yeah. I just always thought that the Norse stuff was just I don't know. It just seemed slightly less crazy.
That's crazy.
Here's
What's
one
up?
here's a troll. Here's a fucking troll one, but I'm gonna go with it anyway because it's Gounzen.
You're gonna go with it?
Freaking Gounzen. Is the Riemann hypothesis correct? Do you know what this is?
No. I'm gonna Google it right now because
Okay.
if it's I know Riemann from math, but I don't know what this hypothesis is,
So
and I bombed a lot of math.
here's why I'm gonna humor this. And this ties in. I'm gonna tie this into another question, and the other question was from Sir Holmes, who said, "You guys have talked about content creation and content creators many times. We heard Jeff talk about one of his favorite content creators on YouTube with MMA stuff. He's probably regarding Joe Rogan and a couple of other guys he's talked about. Who are your favorite digital content creators, meaning blogs, podcasts, YouTube, streamers, etc., and why?" So I'm going to tie these two things together because when I read this question from Gounson about the Riemann hypothesis, the first thing I thought of was where to go to learn more about it. I've heard about it before, but I didn't know everything about it. The first thing I did
I went to
was
Wikipedia.
No, fuck Wikipedia. I went to one of my favorite YouTube channels, and it's called Numberphile. And it is if you
You
ever
would
wanna
like
get,
something called Numberphile.
dude, if you want to get lost on the internet for like 5 straight hours and watch some of the best shit you've ever seen, as far as
Do numbers make you hot?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Then you
Okay.
should definitely check out. I urge anyone, even if you don't think you're into math, because the people that they have talking about all this stuff, they're mostly professors, but they're not just like your everyday professors. The vast majority of them are unbelievably good at describing everything and making it sound interesting and fun. And the Riemann hypothesis is just some crazy shit, but it's essentially there's a function that exists, and it's they're trying to figure out. This is actually one of to my knowledge, one of I think they're called the Millennial Prize, the Millennial Questions, where they had the seven mathematical issues that if you solved one of them, there was a fund put together basically where if you solved them or proved them, I should say, either in some cases they need to be proved positive or disproven.
In the positive or the
won
negative. Yeah.
$1 million. So one of those 7 has already been tackled. This is one of them that hasn't been done yet, but Raymond proposed that in this function where they're trying to find out when the function equals to 0, that all of the numbers that would result in the function giving you 0 falls on the 1/2, like a 0.5 on the scale. Anything beyond that is no good, and and I think it was like any positive integer or some crazy shit. It was between 1 or less than 1. 1 itself is a number that doesn't even work within the function, period. You can't plug 1 in, it just fucks up, so you can't use it. So everything beyond that's fine, everything before that, whatever, but he proposed that everything that would create a 0 has to fall on that 1/2 line. And they've run, I think, computer simulations on this, and they've got a huge list of numbers, all of them falling on that line, but nobody has found one that doesn't fall on that line. So essentially, if you find one that doesn't fall on that line, $1 million. So the question being, is Riemann correct? I mean, fuck me. If I knew, I'd be a millionaire.
I am not good at math. You might not believe that, but the reason my GPA was not as high as it could be is because math exists as a subject, which should terrify people because I also do a lot of financial software. But I get the computer to do it for me. That's the trick. So to answer your question, Goenson, if my computer tells me this hypothesis is correct, thumbs up. If it tells me it's not or it doesn't know, I'm gonna be like, well, shit. I don't know.
Yep. Yeah. Not a clue. Not a clue, but watching that video was super entertaining to me because it involves this whole thing where, imaginary numbers are still a thing that not everybody likes to talk about because they're like, well, fuck, they're imaginary, and why would you even bother with it? And you can't really do much with them. But if you attach an imaginary number to an actual, real number, then you can do things with them. Anyway, the video's fantastic. Lots of fun stuff on that channel. So that's the tie-in to that. Is Numberphile is one of my favorite content creators. I also enjoy my favorite podcast is, everybody already knows, is the Giant Bombcast from Jeff Gerstmann and Brad Shoemaker and Vinny Caravella and Rip Ryan Davis. So on and so forth. That's my favorite podcast. I don't get to listen to it pretty much ever anymore, but anytime I do, it's fantastic. I also occasionally like to watch car-related stuff on YouTube, like reviews of cars. I don't need to. I don't need to watch. I'm not looking for like car reviews of $250,000 beasts. I just like to sometimes see people do honest, good reviews of normal ass cars. And one of my top guys for that is Canadian. Is a Canadian, and he's called the channel's called Savage Geese, and he does amazing cinematography. Another channel that's Canadian as well is Hardware Canucks, and Dimitri also has some of the best cinematography for computer anything. Cases is where he started doing most of his reviews, were computer case reviews, and he's spun out into other things as well. But Hardware Canucks for case reviews is pretty much unmatched. It's the only place I go for my case reviews now, and if you notice, there's a theme here. A lot of this is review related. The last one in the review segment that I'll mention is Rocket Jump Ninja, who does mice reviews. And there is basically nobody that does mice reviews better than he does by a long shot. He is a old hand at Quake, and he's been playing it for 20 years. You can imagine he's not half bad at Quake. And when you play Quake at a high level, you need to have a mouse, and you need to know what you need in a mouse. And so he's spun that into a channel that's unbelievably good, and you should definitely check him out if you want to know what mice are worth buying and what mice aren't. And then I guess if it was a non-review thing, I will also get lost in watching videos about
cats.
Theoretical physics and stuff. Michio Kaku is one of my favorite guys, so I'll watch a lot of stuff with him, things of that nature. But I'm a big documentary guy, so that's another deal. I really don't take in a lot of like Twitch streamers. I don't watch a lot of streams.
I don't either.
When I do,
I'm around you guys too much.
More. Yeah, well, exactly. I mean, I've been watching, when I do watch stuff, if it isn't one of my friends streaming or something, I'll watch Dr. Disrespect. I can't.
He's hilarious.
I fucking love that guy. I think he's the best streamer on the entire website, hands down. I think he's got it. He does that shtick so fucking well, and everything on that channel is, Gillette, the best a man can get, and everything is just so perfect. It's so perfect.
It's just so ridiculous. It's just like gets me out of reality for a bit, which is why I love it.
The Slick Daddy Club is one of the greatest fucking names, and he's a champion of everything. two-time champion of everything. It's just fucking perfect. He's like he would have made an absolutely
perfect American
late 80s, early 90s wrestler. Like he took the way I see Dr. Disrespect is he spun like old 80s 90s wrestling sticks into a Twitch stream idea and is fucking killing it, and I love it. So that's I'm sure everybody listening has probably already heard of Dr. Disrespect. So that's mine. What about you?
If you haven't, go watch him. He's hilarious. Yeah. Again, I don't air towards the Twitch streamers too much. Again, I've spent so much time on Twitch. It's just I'm jaded at this point, so I'm not going to name too many streamers. I have picked up watching a lot of art streams now on Twitch because I see some really cool stuff there. Tony Moy is actually he's actually in chat now, but he does really cool watercolor work. I actually met him at a convention before I even knew he was on Twitch or anything. But I just really like watching. Yeah, I love watching artists actually work on Twitch because you get to see the entire process. And especially if they're like engaging and like talking while they're doing it. For me, it's like living vicariously through the artist. Art is one of those things that I never got to pick up when I was younger. I was always like engineering, math, be a doctor, be a lawyer, be a whatever. So I didn't really have time to develop those skills. And I don't really have time now because I have so many other things going on. So like I like to watch it though, and I love the creative process. So like Tony is one of those artists that I love watching, just because it's insane watercolor, which you don't really see on Twitch. Everyone's doing kind of digital painting or other painting. You don't see too many watercolorists, which is, it's nice to see. In terms of content that I consume on a regular basis, though, a lot of it's on YouTube. I like learning things. I don't necessarily just watch I watch a lot of random videos and music videos, whatever. But content-wise, I'm going to say number one is Frono's Photo. It's Jared Polin. He's a photographer. Yes. He does a lot of informational videos. He also has series and stuff. And Phil Steele. Those two guys are how I learned photography. I watched their
I know
videos.
Phil
I
Steele.
went out and tried stuff out. Yeah. They've got tons of like classes and seminars. I've actually bought their content also, and it is phenomenal. I have like improved my photography game so much from those two guys. Hell, even Adorama TV. Adorama is a store in New York where you can buy camera gear, but the best way they got for like selling stuff is straight up. They have videos where they'll show off products, but at the same time they'll be like, "Hey, this is how you do cool stuff with cameras. This is how you do portraits and stuff." I've watched hundreds of hours on photography, so like those guys are some of my go-tos. I also watch like in terms of YouTube, I learned pretty much a lot of my computer skills, not like how to build computers and whatnot. I'll watch Linus and all that for just random information, but Premiere, After Effects, all that stuff, I go to YouTube. If I need to go crazy and like get something, I'll watch a bunch of YouTube videos, try it myself, and then if I need to, I'll go and find someone like who's done like in the like seminar type videos, and I'll get those too. But like all the stuff I've learned about audio, all the stuff like that we're exercising here, I've learned from YouTube, I've learned from reading online from that, but YouTube's like the number one go-to for me for that. Other than that, I mean, I don't read too many blogs. I do Ars Technica a lot. That's one of my kind of general news sites that I go to get information.
Ours is pretty safe. Yeah.
Yeah, I like Ars because they don't go over the top too much on anything. They do have a slant, but you generally get the facts. It's solid. I used to be huge on non-tech, but they've kind of gone downhill since and kind of moved on to do other things.
Yeah.
Creative side of things on YouTube, one of my favorite channels is actually HobbyLink TV. They do Gunpla TV, which is Gundam modeling. You can tell I have it's not lit up, but I have Gundam models there, and I have a bunch that I still need to build. But it's one of those things that, getting to use my hands to build things is what I do.
Yeah, of course.
So I consume all of that content through YouTube also. So it's solid. I don't think I do much else. Most of my other stuff is either reading books or articles from like newspapers and stuff. So I'm still kind of in that old guard of media consumption.
Nothing wrong with that.
Books.
I mean, I mean, YouTube, it's gotten harder and harder to find people that aren't like sort of bought out in some way.
Yeah.
It's gotten better in that everybody legally has to state when they are, doing an ad of some kind, which has been a big help on YouTube because it was running a little too rampant for a while. But yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I'll still do things like read consumer reports, which is just in print. I mean, you could go to the website and shit, but I'll still use consumer reports, and if I need to get more information on products and stuff I'm looking into purchasing. I agree.
Sweetwater is really good too. They have a lot of content out for their audio stuff.
This is true. Sweetwater has expanded into that.
I've gone there recently, so they're super solid. So again, these are not sellout things. These are like things that we've had to learn about. So we've had to go to places where we're like, everyone says they're reliable. So we haven't been let wrong. So.
Also, I'll do one more shout out for audio related stuff. If you guys are big on audio stuff, specifically microphones for voiceover work and anything like that, Booth Junkie is a small YouTuber.
Oh yeah, those guys are great.
It's one dude.
Wait, Booth Junkie.
So you're probably thinking of some other channel, but Booth Junkie is a guy he does voiceover work. He's a freelancer type deal. He contracts himself out for various things. He's got a fantastic voice. He has everything on the channel from building your own low cost sound booth at home to a whole slew of mic reviews, and he's starting to branch out into some interface reviews as well. And he does a really good job of doing like side by sides, like mic side by sides on YouTube done properly are really hard to find because people don't take into consideration
YouTube does to the audio.
Yeah, what YouTube does to the audio, but also just the difference in power two mics need and everything else to sound as they should.
Oh, does he like multimeter that shit before he does it?
Well, he does like for. Just as an example, like he had a video where he was matching, or not matching, but he was comparing an SM7B with another mic, and obviously the SM7B needs a hell of a lot more to meet the same level of volume.
That's a high impedance mic.
Yeah, so things like that can be hard to come by, and he's doing a really great job of it and easy to listen to. So there's another one. Yeah. What do we got for another question? I think you're up, sir. What do you got?
Oh, I am up. All right, let's see what we got. I'm gonna go a little ridiculous. Who would win in a fight, Adam? This is from D Neves, by the way. D Neves, I don't know. I will get your name right eventually. But who
Okay.
would win in a fight, Adam? 50 blind clowns with laser eyes or 50 unoiled robots with buzzsaws for hands?
I feel like laser eyes. Well, I mean, there's a couple things you have to take into consideration here. Okay, there is a
My
high
question is, are the
percentage
robots
chance.
reflective?
I think the high percentage chance that the clowns accidentally start killing each other because they're blind. So there's a
Huh.
there's a good friendly fire opportunity to be had there, because other than that, the unoiled robots, other than being super loud and more easily than distinguishable by the blind clowns, are also
Or the
really slow
buzzsaw
to
hands?
move. Yeah, but they're super slow to move. So, I'm going to go with, as a betting man, I'm going to go with the blind clowns, because despite the fact that they might kill each other off a bit, the robots need to be within melee range for that shit, and they are slow and rusty and loud, and those blind clowns are going to be, fuck them up. I think the clowns take it. What do you think?
I don't know. I think it might be pretty even. It all depends. It depends on if the robots are like kind of mirror finish or not, and how
Okay,
badly rusted they are. Like
fair.
if they're able to move, like not completely like whatever, and they're able to actually move, I think the robots could close the distance. And in melee combat, those buzzsaws will tear those clowns apart, man. 'Cause, I mean, how
Well,
how
then
fast is a
shit.
blind clown going to actually move?
How fast do you need to move if you have laser eyes? You got the range, bro.
Yeah, but where are they going to know? I mean, they're going to have to kind of guess based on where the robots are.
Well, well, I mean, they're not oiled. I mean, you're gonna hear that shit. You're gonna fucking they
Yeah,
move 1 inch, you're gonna hear that shit. That's you never know.
all right,
But
fair enough.
again, the clowns are probably gonna kill each other off
Yeah.
for those same
I feel like that's like a
problems.
Anchorman news team fight right there.
That is, that is.
Frick, where did you get laser eyes?
We're don't question it. Here's one. This is a longer one, but we'll go in on it. We've kind of touched bits and pieces on this in the past, but we'll give her a more of a go here. What is your general life philosophy? How is this reflected
Ooh, this
in
is
your
a deep one.
personality and attitude? And how has it shaped the decisions you have made in your life in the past and in the future? Here's mine, for example, in case you're not sure what I mean. I feel that you should have some plan for the future, but due to an unpredictable nature of life and the amount of shit that it can throw at you, you should be able to go with the flow and know when to say fuck it and just go with it and enjoy life. Because of that, I don't overly micromanage every aspect of my life and my future, and am much more open to new ideas and being spontaneous than my peers, just so that I can have these new experiences and see where it takes me. So I'll leave that up to you. So just to recap the short version of that, the actual question is, what is your general life philosophy, and how is it reflected in your personality and attitude, and how has it shaped the decisions you have made in your life in the past and future? It's
Ooh,
loaded.
that's a I wouldn't even say that's loaded. That's just a really heavy question. You know, especially like for me personally, and this one gets kind of personal for me again. I've had some stuff happen throughout the course of my life that's kind of really changed my outlook over the past couple of years, and I've had some stuff happen really recently, like past couple of months, that had me kind of reevaluate everything again. For me, I am a very and I'm gonna kind of handle this the other way around. I'm gonna go with what reflects in my personality and my attitude. Um,
Okay.
I'm usually not like I'm not like a super upbeat person or a super downbeat person. I'm usually very neutral. I'm very logical, rational, and reason, and I run that. And as you can tell from the podcast, I'm not usually like super emotive or super excitable compared to say Adam or Jeff on different topics. I kind of
Mm.
I walk the middle line. And that's my personality is just very like matter of fact and middle of the line. Um, and for me, partially that's because I'm an information gatherer. I'm pretty much absorbing information from anything I do all the time. I literally have like 4 monitors in front of me here, 4 monitors at work. I have articles up all the time. I listen to music. I'm reading. Crazy amounts of information, and then from that, I put patterns together. I weave everything together in kind of crazy, weird ways, and all of
Mm-hmm.
that, and that shapes my worldview based on that. So my philosophy is always like it is passive in the sense I'm like I will make decisions and I will go forward on the basis of the information that I have in front of me. And that's kind of how I've been doing things for the past 10 or so odd years. And even before that, I was always kind of analytical. I'm not really a spontaneous person. I plan things, and for the most part, stuff has gone to plan for me. Because again, I'm not one that will dive right in immediately. I will sit back, get the information, and then make an informed, step forward into it. Um, that's changed. I've had some stuff happen. Say 10 years ago, I had a major event happen that changed really how I thought about things. And for
Mm-hmm.
me, that was like a big step back in becoming very passive. That
Mm.
manifested in me, not being as outgoing, not being as lively. It was much more reserved and quiet. And I put my in that manifested as me putting my head down and powering through. I was really good at work. I did a really good job. I made a lot of money. I bought my apartment. I'm also, and I kind of set up where I'm at now. Then a couple of years ago, I made the decision. You know what? I do kind of want to be more outgoing, and that's when I, met all of you guys. I started doing more stuff, and being more outgoing. In the Twitch community, in the esports community, in the gaming community. I kind of started putting myself out there more. So from that
Mm.
perspective, that manifested in my personality, and I'm going to ask you what you think of my personality, kind of based on all the years. You know, just
Right.
like everyone has kind of come to me like, oh yeah, you're that super knowledgeable guy. You get a lot of stuff done. You know what to do, when to do it, type of thing. And that's kind of been my reputation, as being that knowledgeable person, um, for
Well,
me. And
that's
then
not your
again,
personality. That would be like your, putting you in a box,
I'm
I
also
guess.
like
What
I'm like
categorizing
super
you?
approachable and generally nice guy, even though like I'm sarcastic or whatever. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's hard to kind of gauge like the outside perception. Um, and then again, a couple of months ago, and I'm sure as many of you probably seen, I've gone through a really rough patch over the past couple of months. Depression, a couple other things, based on what's happened. But that's manifested in my personality. And again, I'm a lot more reserved. I'm not as outgoing. I'm not going to as many events. I'm not picking up as many hobbies. I'm much more focused on, head down, get my stuff done, doing that sort of thing. And for me personally, all of that kind of determines on if I'm having like a positive slant or a negative slant. Never
Mm.
really like super far in either direction. So like for me personally, I feel like I'm in a negative slant at the moment, which I feel is accurate, you know, and working out how to get it back to a positive slant. So my philosophy is always about not necessarily having everything being super positive or super negative. It's always just finding that middle line and, walking along it. It's kind of weird
Yeah.
and roundabout, but I
No,
don't know if
I
that
get.
makes sense to people.
No, it makes sense. I mean, I mean, I've known you now for what,
We're going on 7 years now, over
6,
7 years.
7 years.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I mean, I think obviously you know yourself relatively well. I think I see you differently than probably most people do. Probably
Yes.
just based on our relationship, so it's a little different. But yeah, I think you've got it kind of nailed down. I think to play psychiatrist live and on the air. You're definitely. It's funny to watch because you what you just described basically. You started at one point, then something happened, and then you worked yourself into a totally different personality, and
Yes.
now you're in some retroactive attempt at getting back to where you were beforehand.
I'm fixing
Um,
a flux.
yes, so you started here, you went over here, and now you're trying to like meet back at the same level, but in a different point over here somewhere.
I don't want to get like too super personal on a podcast that's going out to like 15,000 plus people. So I'm just like, it's like I kind of become like a personality chameleon depending on different points and what needs to happen, I guess.
Yeah, and there's lots of people like that. I mean, I'm similar. I'm a chameleon in social situations. You know, I'll just walk into a room and then just fucking whatever. I can stand and talk with any group and it's just whatever. I'm not. You know, I don't go to one particular place. So. Yeah, no, I agree. I think that's all pretty on the nose. My life philosophy,
you, sir.
I have several. I have several, but I'll stick to a couple. I've mentioned this in past podcasts. One of my philosophies
the Nova
in
Testament.
The Nova Testament. One of my philosophies in life is so long as you're not hurting anyone else around you, physically or otherwise, you do you, boo-boo. Now, that doesn't mean physical only. That doesn't mean, you know, you get away with being an asshole verbally. You know, that doesn't change. It also doesn't mean, you know, that you can technically be hurting yourself doing something, like you're doing self-harm, because that's also going to affect the people around you, your family, your friends, you know, the people that care about you. That's going to affect them. So there are limits to everything. However, that's a good general one for me. Is you know, if you're not hurting anyone else, you know, go nuts. And that's just kind of like the philosophy for things like same-sex marriage. You know, smoke fucking weed on a daily basis. I don't really give a damn. You know, it's just the way it is. But then in the same vein, if you went and said, all right, I smoke cigarettes, but I also have children, I'm not even concerned necessarily only about secondhand smoke, but the fact of the matter is that you're putting yourself at an absolutely huge risk when you have children in the world now, so that I just find that to be horribly irresponsible. So it might seem like one of the philosophies that people have these days where it's like, I'm gonna do me, and if you don't like me, you don't have to, so fuck you. Like, which is one of the most dangerous mindsets.
I don't like the fuck
have.
you part of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't like that fuck you part of it.
It's becoming more prevalent. It's like this thing where it's like, yeah, I'm going to. It's like it's in vogue to be like, yeah, I'm a fucking asshole, and deal with it, bitch. Because you know, if you hurt your feelings. Then whatever.
That's the counter, though. Like, everyone's got the I have a right to not be offended mentality. I feel like that personality is the counter to, you know what, I'm me, so fuck you mentality.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I feel like that's just a natural counterpoint. Like, if someone's gone to that one extreme, the other extreme's coming out too.
Yeah.
They're just like, you know what, it's time to go.
It's not a license to be a cunt, basically. You can't take it so far as to just turn into a complete asshole. But the philosophy that has become more and more important to me over the last, I'd say, 10 years has been looking at life, simplifying things. There's a lot of talk in this itself is kind of, you know, a philosophy, obviously, but in philosophy, in terms of how one lives one's life and how one makes decisions and where one puts importance and so on and so forth. All those things lead to these super gray areas, right? Where people will say almost everything in life is on a spectrum and you have to, you know, decisions and events and things fall on this spectrum, and that invites gray areas. And I have a slightly different take on that, and that is I look at life more binary than most people probably do. I look at life as a whole shitload of yes/no questions, on/off switch.
Oh, you're binary. Yeah, I can see that being you're a very binary person.
And that's how I try and go through life. And I changed it a bit because for the longest time I didn't think that way. And what happened was before I made that switch is I was far more indecisive and I would get incredibly anxious and worked up about decisions because I couldn't make a choice. Because what I would do would be, it's like you. I'm an information gatherer. I go out about any given thing, and I just bombard myself with information about any given topic that I need to make a decision based on, and then I try and make what people would call an informed decision. You know, my level of informed decision is probably orders of magnitude larger in terms of information gathering than other people would. And so I would get myself caught in this thing where I'd have too much information from both sides, and I wouldn't be able to just make a fucking decision. And until I made the switch in my mind and said, look, at the end of the day, whether the outcome is positive or negative, regardless of what happens in life, everything is just it might seem like it's complicated. There's a lot of shit going on in the periphery, but at the end of the day, you're either saying yes or no to a question. You're either doing it or you're not doing it. It's like some Yoda shit. It's the do or do not. There is no try, which, you know, is cheesy, but it's true. It plays into this kind of philosophy. And it relieved a lot of stress off of me. It helped me process shit just happening in life. So, like, if something negative were to happen, to frame how this would go down, like last year was a shit year for me. House got broken into, everything got fucked up, my car died, I had to spend a fucking fortune on everything. I lost all of the money that I had saved up over the last 8 years. My account went down to a couple $100, and that was the entire show, down from like 30 something grand I was saving up for a down payment on a house. That all evaporated in the course of a very short window of time. And throughout that, with those events happening at each juncture, and then looking at that as a whole year, you have a couple of options in those cases. You sit down and you get really fucking angry about it, and you dwell on it for long periods of time, and you get next to nothing done. So that's one choice. Your second choice is you accept the fact that it's happened. You don't really have control over anything that's already happened. You're not a fucking time lord. You can't fucking just turn back the clock and go, do something to change it. So you have to make the decision at some point. Do I stay angry and be unproductive, or do I accept that it's happened and move on and just fucking continue on? And that can be a very difficult thing for people to do, because some of the knee-jerk reactions to that when I've explained this to people is, well, it just sounds like you're saying I'm not allowed to be angry. You're just saying that I'm not allowed to be sad.
It's the worst thing when someone tells me, let it go. You know, you just need to learn to let it go.
That's not what I'm saying. You're totally allowed to still have those emotions. The decision is
it's whether you let it govern your actions or not.
To completely govern what you're doing. So when I took that on and looked at life more binary, then all of a sudden things got way fucking easier. I just do my information search, for example, if it was a decision in that neighborhood, and just fucking pull a trigger. And if it's bad, it's bad. If it's good, it's good. I made the decision. I move on with my fucking life so I can keep doing something else. If something shit or positive happens in life, great. It's the same thing. It always comes down
to
two.
Really hard for me to do.
and it's hard for a lot of people to do. And it becomes more difficult to do because we're constantly bombarded with information from every fucking corner of the earth. And so it's harder to just make decisions, whether that's an emotional decision or a technical decision, or whatever. So it took me years to fucking get around it. And the thing that triggered it was when I was in university, and that one, I don't know if I've told the story on the podcast before, but there was that one. It was like a bird course. It was a religious studies. It was a first year religious studies course that it was a filler course for me because I had nothing else that I could take. And I went in, and it was all essays, and that was it. And you studied various religions, and you would write an essay on every single one of them, basically. And the last essay that happened, I was horribly sick, 103-degree fever. I was fucked up. I was in bed, and I emailed my prof. My paper was done, but I couldn't physically hand it into him. And he was a prof that would not take electronic copies, refused them. And so I said, you know, I can't get it to you during class. Can I get it to you later if I feel better in the day? Can I drive in later? I wasn't about to drive a car with 103-degree fever for a fucking paper. That's just dumb. So he said, yeah, absolutely. Come drop it off at my office. I did that. The door was closed. I put it underneath the door. I emailed him, told him it was there. He said, oops, too bad. I'm already gone home now. It's the end of the year and I live out, you know, in the valley. And yeah, it's a shame because you would have had an A- and now you're going to probably get a B-. I was like, well, can I just send you this paper via email? And he said, no, you know I don't take that. I don't take electronic copies. And I was like, well, this seems to be a kind of a special case here. You know, this was like, I'm not going to risk my life for that shit. So like, could we just, and he refused. And it took my GPA all the way down to 3.67, which was the line for me to keep my scholarship. That was the point. I needed to maintain 3.67, and I landed exactly on 3.67. And so I was okay with that at the time until the end of my university career. My goals were to make the dean's list every single year and to graduate magna cum laude. The last year comes up. All of my scores come in. I had 2 semesters with almost complete A+ or A's on every fucking course. I was like, this is it. This is my chance. It comes in. I'm at 3.84. Magna is 3.85. And you know why? Because of the fucking course from that one goddamn asshole. And it was a goal that was stolen from me for the dumbest it wasn't my fault, so it made it even worse. And I had the hardest time letting that shit go until my dad came in, because it was weeks after I'd graduated and I was brooding in my fucking bedroom. I was ready. I wanted to kill the guy. I was angry as fuck because it was a goal, like a fucking massive goal. 4 years busted my ass, and of all the things for that to happen, that's what happens. My dad just came in and he laid that shit on me. He was like, look, dude, it's on water under the bridge. You have to learn now that shit's going to happen, and you have to be able to look at it as a decision of whether or not you're going to let it control how you move forward from that point on. And from that day forward, binary fucking for life. Just yes, no questions. And let me tell you, when you get there, it feels fucking awesome because you give way less.
I'm working
fucks.
on that now.
You still get emotional and you still get angry and you get like all that stuff is sad, but it's being free to just say fuck it and keep moving. That's the binary aspect of it.
So what happened with me, what happened 10 years ago when that incident happened, it like shook my foundation. So I spent those years kind of, again, my whole information gathering thing is not like, oh, I just read information. It's like literally from everything, from like interactions with people, body language, all this information comes in, and it's a system. It's a very complicated system of buckets and filters and like all crazy whatever. You can probably draw a circuit diagram of how all the stuff goes through it. So I had built up that system of understanding and processing things over like 5-6 years. So, and that included like, my relationship, like, and it wasn't like just for decisions. It was like all encompassing. Like it determined how friendly I was to certain people. It determined, like all of that, like it was like stack rankings of like friendships and all this other stuff based on, my interactions with them. And everyone kind of had like a rolling score, events for everything. It was like a 10,000 to negative 10,000 scale. Negative 10,000, you're dead to me. 10,000, you're like,
negative 10,000 sounds like you've gone awfully far down the rabbit hole. That's pretty rough.
Exactly. Again, it was just like, and all of this stuff, and like based on that, everything kind of had a place in the system, and that system worked really well for a very long time. And as it went on, again, like I've had systems for dealing with things, and that's generally how I kept things mostly stable. There were a couple of periods where things kind of went off the rails, but for the most part, it governed and it worked well. And then again, a couple of months ago, I had, it wasn't nearly as a bad event, whatever. It's just I had a long period of events, and not just from one area kind of going, and effectively my filters and buckets were all ever so slightly off or skewed, and things went into places, whatever. And when I got to the decision, like there came, you have again, Doctor Who reference here. There are fixed points in time or fixed events that happen that are like kind of defining moments. And I had one of those kind of moments, not anything super serious in the long run, But I had one of those moments, and it went completely opposite of everything I had been working towards for like years on various fronts. And for
Mm.
me, that was like, how did I? It kind of like, it's like, is the entire system that I've been like putting together for years wrong, or is it something I need to adjust? So like for me, it's been a couple of months of like going up and down, being like, no, it was correct. No, it was wrong. No, it's completely wrong. Oh God, what do I do now? Type of mentality. So it's been like that, kind of going back and forth. So for like, I get your mentality of like having that whole binary thing. For me, I'm like, I had this huge system. Do I throw the entire thing out and like
Yeah,
redefine, or
yeah.
do I like try to fix that system? So I'm just like, how do I go about readjusting around, because effectively when that went completely the opposite way, it's like I was just like, I've made a lot of decisions around this, and now I need to completely be like, okay, let's readjust. How do we do this? So that's kind of what, like,
Mm.
that's regoverning my philosophy. Like that's why it's a hard question to answer. It's like I have a general life philosophy, but I think it might be wrong now. How do I fix it? Type of thing. So it's like
Well,
when I saw that
everyone,
question, I was like, I hope they don't ask that.
everyone has to have like some sort of like
Yeah.
differing thing, right? So it's fair that there's a rollover every now and then. Everybody has different points in their life where they look at life differently because of what happens. It's just kind of the way
Hmm.
it goes. Very few people get to grab onto a life philosophy early on and then have it never friggin' change throughout their entire adult life. So that's pretty rare. Let's wrap this up with a game related question.
Ooh, bring it back.
Since we've avoided being able to talk too much about that stuff in the second half here. Is there this is from Zerago, is there a game style or world that you've always wanted to play but never had the chance, whether because it doesn't exist or for other reasons? Example, I've never gotten to play a platformer based on clowns. What's with the clown theme
Clowns
today?
today.
Clowns everywhere. So
Hmm.
anything you can think of? Like any game, like any world or style of game that you've not got to experience for any reason, whether it doesn't exist or otherwise?
This is gonna sound really stupid, but I'm like, Star Citizen as it was originally pitched. I know the Star Citizen we're gonna get is not necessarily going to be that game, but that is the exact genre of game that I want. You are a person in a space combat sim. You've got your ships, you've got your missions, you
Mm-hmm.
get in, you do your stuff. I like, that's the type of game I want. Star Citizen might not be that game, but what they've been trying to sell is that mark, I would say, for me.
Um, I have
Ooh.
two completely different things I'm gonna go with here. Um, One is well, I have three, I guess. One is space exploration. I don't necessarily need Star Citizen as it is. I don't need an
Yeah.
economy. I don't need anything like that. That's why No Man's Sky was
You want
so
No Man's Sky.
intriguing to me. Unfortunately, it didn't deliver on a lot of it, but that kind of concept, I'm an I'd much rather just explore things. Maybe there's some light combat or whatever. I don't need it. But that's the kind of thing that I would most enjoy in that space. I would also like here we go to a totally different location, and there have been bits and pieces of this, but it hasn't been completely done. Is this is the and this is the dumbest, most like gamer answer for this ever is I want a golf game that actually resembles going to the fucking golf course. I want to walk or use
You
the
want to
golf
walk the
cart
green.
between holes. I want to experience the golf course. I don't want to just have a pre-baked, being in the rough or the
Go to this
fairway and
hole, go to
only
that
seeing
hole.
that. I want to just walk the damn course. I feel like we have the technology at this point if we have open world
You want a
games.
VR golf game where you walk the course and you do all that jazz before you
I
start
don't even
golfing.
I don't even need VR. I just want to be able to just walk around the fucking golf course. Like that's what I would love to have.
Can't
So
you
that
go
would
to
be
an
that'd
actual
be
golf
kinda neat.
course?
Well, I mean, I do golf, yes, but in seeing how I live in the middle of nowhere that snows for 6 months of the year, it's difficult to keep up with much
For
golf.
the other
so,
6 months of the years.
yeah, the other 6 months of the year, you only have like 3 to 4 months of actual good golf, and the rest of it, you're just telling yourself that there's good golf to be had, but in reality, nobody would be stupid enough if they didn't live here. So, I've always wanted to have that kind of experience. And then the last one I've already mentioned a million times, and I'll keep mentioning it until it exists, is I have not been able to have a proper and good, and sometime it will happen, whether it's VR or AR or some form of, but the puzzle adventure genre is, I think, one of the best genres in gaming, and it will shine best when virtual reality and or AR peak, whatever form that takes, whether it's a holodeck or otherwise, that's where that kind of game shines. Obviously, VR is a very good substitute for where we are right now. The second versions of whatever VR exists right now are probably going to be when I might be interested in VR. Right now, I couldn't care less if I tried. But I just want that, because puzzle adventure in VR and having these things, we have the handheld stuff, and to be able to just use your hand and then turn something or pull a lever or do whatever and see that in the game and solve puzzles that way, that just seems fucking awesome. So yeah, just twist the nipples. It's a Colin Mockery. Whenever he had to turn the heat up in the shower, he would just go over to the woman and just fucking turn the nipples every single time. That's what I want to do in VR, man. That's all I'm asking. That's all I'm asking. Do you have anything else other than Star Citizen that you can think of?
No, like the moment I saw that, I'm like, no, this is one of those defining moments in time where you know what the answer is. That was it for me, right there.
Yeah, I don't know what else. Oh, here's something. This is very specific to me. I want to have a full-blown racing simulator, like chair, shell, where I can actually get my legs underneath the steering wheel so I can learn to drive manual, because I physically cannot do that shit in reality. So if I could get a custom-made housing so that my legs can go underneath the steering wheel and I can learn how to...
For those of you that don't know on the podcast, Adam driving in an SUV is like me trying to drive in a Mini. Like it's like a clown car where the knees are on both sides of the wheel, the chair is like pulled back, and he's just like, "Yep, this is my life."
That's it, and that's every car. The only car I've ever sat in where my knees go underneath the steering wheel was a model 2007, 2008 Toyota Tacoma. Every other vehicle I've ever sat in.
You need like a Humvee or something.
No, dude, I sat in a Ford Excursion. Just because the car is big doesn't mean the cabin space is utilized well. I sat in a Ford Excursion, and it was smaller for me than the Toyota Yaris that we eventually bought as a family, that I drove for years.
In that car's defense, I don't think they were expecting to find someone who's like 75% leg.
Yeah, see, that's the problem.
You're just oddly proportioned.
That's it. So it's not that I don't understand how to drive manual or anything like that. I'm physically limited. I could do it, but nobody would want to be in the car because it would be dangerous as fuck. Somebody would die because my knees are on the on the sides of the steering wheel.
Tried to pop the clutch, leg ended up behind head.
Yeah, no, that's just not a safe. It's an unsafe thing to happen. So that would be something else. But yeah, do you have anything else to add to that, or are you're good there?
No, I actually have a movie I need to get to in about 25 minutes.
Oh, well, good news. We're done then, son. We wrapped it up right now.
I'm going to make it right in time.
What movie are you watching?
I got the entire I'm going to get Wonder Woman done. They have a 12:10 showing. I'm just going to go watch it. I got the theater all to myself. I don't know why. I just saw 12:10. I'm like, let's do that. I got a Homecoming tomorrow, so.
Oh, there you go.
Spider-Man Homecoming tomorrow, so I'm like, let's get that out of the way.
Well, then we will get out of your way so that you can go on and do what you need to do. I'm gonna go and probably just edit this podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for those of you who got here on Twitch and watched. I know it was probably not particularly fun to find it here because throughout this entire stream, Twitch has labeled us as offline for about a good quarter of it. Because Twitch is never broken, and it is Master Race. I also want to thank, of course, everybody that's been listening to this on iTunes and Google Play Music and everywhere else in the RSS feeds.
We love you.
We do. We love you. You're amazing, and the growth continues to be there, and so keep that up. Really do appreciate those on YouTube. Thank you so much as well. Big thanks to those who have been remaining positive in their constructive criticism, if anything, on YouTube, because it's always nice to see that versus just rampant craziness. And it also means a lot to us on YouTube because, like everyone else, our views have gone down by about 40 to 50% because of YouTube's new algorithm. And so as we just watch the 0.5% of YouTube go into the stratosphere and everybody else is left on Earth to die, we do appreciate those that stop by on YouTube.
Final countdown.
As always, all we ask is that you maybe tell one or two other people about the podcast if you think they'd dig it. Once again, you can watch us live at twitch.tv/technicalalpha. You can find out more information at technicalalpha.audio or on Patreon, where you can support us more directly, patreon.com/technicalalpha. Thank you guys so much once again. We will see you guys next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. And until then, peace!